And welcome back to Newsmax Now. It's time for today's catch-up. We have 5 stories to take you behind the headlines, plus some stories you may have missed. Well, President Trump and the folks in Houston gave Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi a Texas-sized welcome over the weekend. Tens of thousands of Indian Americans attended the Howdy Modi event, where Modi delivered an unmistakable endorsement of President Trump and his candidacy for 2020. Houston is the nation's most diverse city and is home to an estimated 150,000 Indian Americans. Around 150,000 travelers around the world remain stranded after the world's oldest travel firm, Thomas Cook, collapsed last night. The 178-year-old travel agency entered a liquidation after talks on financial rescue failed. All 600,000 current flights and vacations booked through the company were canceled as a result. The collapse will also affect an estimated 1 million future bookings as well. Meanwhile, the United Auto Workers strike against General Motors continues. Now in its 8th day, the 49,000 workers on strike are eligible for strike benefits, which will cost the union about $12.5 million a week, while both sides continue to negotiate. They say there is still a long way to go before they reach a settlement. The Area 51 festivals are officially over, and they definitely did not live up to all the hype. Nearly 2 million people responded to the Facebook invite for one event. Anywhere between 40 and 300 people actually showed up on Friday before they were either confronted by law enforcement or just simply decided to leave on their own. One arrest was made over the weekend for public urination on the gate. Fortunately, nobody actually stormed the gate or was shot. Omarosa Manigault Newman has a new job, kind of. She is Michael Cohen's personal advisor and coach. Yeah. The former Apprentice star was spotted visiting the former Trump attorney in prison over the summer, sometime in late June. According to Page 6, Newman says she is helping Cohen get through this difficult time since they share a common disdain for their former boss, President Trump. Cohen has been behind bars since May, when he began serving a 3-year sentence for campaign violations and fraud. And that's it for today's catch-up. All right, so if you were anywhere near Washington, D.C. today, you may have seen the climate change protesters shutting down several important intersections in the city. D.C. police arrested 26 protesters across the city for blocking traffic, while Capitol Police arrested 6 others near Capitol Hill. Today's protests come after protests in more than 150 countries on Friday ahead of the UN Climate Summit, which began today in New York City. Things got a little bit out of hand, however, when one protester started twerking in the street while others started dumpster fires, like literal dumpster fires. There was one on Massachusetts Avenue. Also, dozens of protesters were caught clutching single-use plastic water bottles in Brisbane, Australia, another side of the climate change. Meanwhile, there was a competing event this weekend, the Democratic Polk County Steak Fry in Iowa, where 17 Democratic contenders grilled over 10,000 steaks and 1,000 vegan burgers. So they had that there. They were discussing global meat consumption and climate change. The candidates who attended are now being called hypocrites, of course, including Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. Vegan Cory Booker was there as well, and Kamala Harris. Welcome back our panel, Jesse Jane Duff, Chris Wilson, and Dr. Lauren Wright. Just, we can throw this out for general discussion. I don't want to diminish the threat of climate change. There is actual evidence that proves something is happening. There's a whole other debate about what's causing it. But, Chris, I think generally, if you're using teenagers to make your point, or you're setting dumpster fires in the street, or twerking to get your point across, or grilling steaks when you say meat is actually going to be the cause of the end of the world, I don't think you're going to convince anybody on the other side to come over to your side, right?
Well, and you didn't mention the fact that they have their signs made out of paper and built with or written on.
We only have so much time, Chris.
Yeah, well, there is that. And then the absolute mess they left. I mean, the pictures in D.C. after these protests is absolutely despicable. I mean, it's amazing that we can have all kinds of marches for different things. I mean, the March for Life, the March for, I can think of so many different conservative marches that it looks like people actually clean up afterwards. These people left a mess and destroyed the city where they were there. And it wasn't just here. And your point about using teenagers to be spokespeople for this is just absolute child abuse. I mean, there are many people who are political officials who aren't prepared for the onslaught of media attention that comes on. And what she's going to go through for the rest of her life is absolutely despicable. And the fact that her parents are putting her through that or letting her go through that, I think is really, like I said, nothing more than child abuse. But I will say, if these climate change protesters want to do something like help elect more Republicans, I would encourage them to go do these same protests in every major city in America, because you will see Republicans take back the suburbs so quickly, it will change the face of Congress for a generation.
Yeah, and that's the end result, right, Lauren? I mean, it's, they may mean well, but they're not getting their point across, and it looks ridiculous to anybody outside of these protesters.
Well, I think we do need to be careful about attacking a 16-year-old who gave a pretty impassioned speech.
And to be clear, Lauren, that's why I'm not playing the clip. A lot of people are attacking her, but I'm not playing the clip. I'm not showing her because I feel like she is a pawn in this game.
That may or may not be true. She seemed to feel very strongly about these things and seemed to have written a speech, and yes, she did it in a certain style that a lot of people find questionable, but she shouldn't be held to the same standards as professional politicians and appointed leaders. I just think that's going to be bad for Republicans if they start going down that road. Well, it's her choice that she wanted to give a speech, but let's move on to the twerking guy. One way of looking at do we have to? One way of looking at these things is, do they get attention, right? So again, if we take
yes, but Lauren, I want to give Jesse a chance too, because
level, sure, got attention.
We're not
That's
talking
all
about
I
climate
can
change.
say.
We're talking about some guy ridiculously.
A lot of eyeballs on that guy, so that could be good or bad.
But they're talking about his twerking ability. I'm not an expert here, from what I can tell and what I read about twerking today to research. He's pretty good at it. But Jesse Jane, it's the hypocrisy here, right? The grilling of the meat while telling the country you can't eat meat anymore.
This all happened a block from my home. This morning I saw it. I saw everything that went on. I saw Massachusetts Avenue when I was trying to get into it, and I recognized, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this was what was going on, but I couldn't understand why is there such a backlog in traffic. Fortunately, I knew a little backwards way to get to back to my house, and then I pull up Twitter and I'm seeing all of this blocking a block from my home. I'm telling you that the traffic was so far backed up that these people are going to be furious. They're never going to support another Democrat. It was horrendous. If you think this is going to have a positive impact upon Americans, it's not. When people start getting inconvenienced, when they're trying to get to work while these people look and appear to not even have a job, obviously they had no place of responsibility to be. And there was one scene where the police kept warning them, get up on the sidewalk or we're going to arrest you. That was 10 o'clock. This had been going on all morning long. I tweeted out to the mayor and the D.C. Police Department. I thought, how could you tolerate this? These are major arteries into the city where taxpayers are funding this so that they can get to work every single day. And you've allowed this protest without a permit to take place. There are reasonable protests that go on in this city all the time. I'm used to it. I live here. But they have parks. They have other locations. You cannot block the streets. They should have started arresting them immediately, because we should not become the toilet bowl for the rest of the nation, for those of us who actually pay taxes and live here and have to get to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
That's my opinion.
Guys, stay with us. We got to get to commercial break. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.